What's good, my dudes, and welcome back to the driveway for another car review here at Humble Hyundai in the north end of Houston, Texas, where today I've been lent the newest and what is now the hottest version of one of the company's more mild-mannered and sensible hatchbacks here in the US. So today we're going to get a look at and even get to drive the brand new 2019 Hyundai Elantra GT N-Line. Alrighty, boys and girls, so let's get to it. And you guys know what we need to do first, right? Gotta bring this sucker to life, of course. Now, this car in particular that I have is about as loaded of one of these as you're going to get. As a matter of fact, not only is this car sticker priced nearing $29,500, but more importantly, for those who are looking for an Elantra GT Sport, you're now looking at that car's successor. The GT Sport name is gone, and in place is the GT N-Line. But we'll go ahead and open her up here. The N-Line does come standard with the company's proximity key keyless access system. Climb on in here. Absolutely love this car's interior, and we'll talk about it more here in just a bit. But being the fact it's keyless, if this car was a manual, you'd simply depress the clutch pedal, but since our tester is the 7-speed automatic, you just have to put your foot on the brake, keep the key fob anywhere in the vehicle, hit the button up on the dashboard, and now, when you look at this new GT N-Line from the outside, it's pretty apparent that the company wanted a much more aggressive and sporty design for their sportiest of the GT hatchbacks. And thanks to the helping hands from former employees at BMW's M division, you can certainly see that that is a proper direction that this car needed to go. Now, here at the front, we do have some pretty aggressive features, such as the fully blacked out full LED headlights here. We have full LED main beams. We have LED high beams. The Sport Tech package does include the auto high beam assist, and we also have the amber LED daytime running lights located down here on the newly revised front fascia. A couple of other things: you do have the air skirts here hidden in the front corners. These exit out here behind the wheel arches, allowing this car to maintain a better coefficient of drag. And I really just love the way they've redesigned this front end to give it, again, that much more aggressive edge compared to the older GT Sport. You have a fully open-faced grille here, finished in a nice satin black, and also thanks to that Sport Tech package, we now have things such as the adaptive cruise control on board with the available stop and go, so it will bring the vehicle to a complete stop and then also set off again when the other car sets off. And you also do have things such as the forward collision avoidance and assist with pedestrian detection as well. Now, from the side, the GT N-Line is still a very sizable hatchback, and the numbers are very class competitive. 170.9 inches from nose to tail, which makes it about an inch longer than something a little bit more lower down, like the new Corolla hatchback that we looked at not long ago. Now, design-wise, there are a number of features here that differentiate this from something like not only the GT Sport from 2018, but also just a regular Elantra GT as well. Case in point, these 18-inch painted and machine-faced aluminum alloy wheels that are specific just to the N-Line GT. But it doesn't just stop with a pretty set of wheels on the outside. Underneath, this has the performance mods of a true hot hatch. We have 12-inch ventilated disc brakes here in the front and 11.2-inch disc brakes in the rear, and also we have an N-tuned McPherson coil spring and strut front suspension and a multi-link suspension setup in the rear. Now, to add to this, because this is the new N-Line, the hottest of the hot hatchbacks, we have an almost 15% spring stiffness increase here in the front and an almost 22% stiffness increase in the rear. So this car will not only perform like the hot hatch it should be, but it's also going to handle like one as well. Now, moving things a bit further down the side, there are a couple of other things worth note on this car, including the gloss black exterior mirrors with the applicable LED turn signals. But in this case, as a bit of a downside, this GT N-Line, even at almost 30 grand loaded out, does not come with the available blind spot monitoring system with rear cross traffic alert, which also now includes on other Hyundai vehicles that use that system, the new rear cross traffic and blind spot collision detection system. So a little bit of a downside, but then again, this car is more more about performance, not luxury features. Now, we do have the keyless access system, as I mentioned before, that is standard on the N-line models, and on this particular car with the almost $3,900 Sport Tech package that I mentioned earlier, as you can see, we now have a full panoramic sunroof going all the way across the top. Now, when viewed from the rear, again, these new gen GTs really remind me of cars like the newer Golf GTI, specifically just in the way they're designed, with things like how curvaceous this rear hatch is in terms of how it's all put together. Same thing with these taillights, the way they're all sculpted together. Now, these taillights on my tester are full LEDs with the exception of the turn signal. That remains just an incandescent bulb. We do have things such as the specific N-line badge here at the back, along with things such as the hidden trunk latch and the raised Hyundai logo here at the back with that government-mandated rear view camera down here. Now, moving down below, you'll notice there are no sensors for any kind of rear park assist. This car does not come with such a feature despite having the rear view camera. And of course, just like the front, you do also have some lower N-line specific body cladding going along the lower part of the bumper with things like this almost diffuser-like projection here in the middle. Now, this is not functional. There's no holes in it to provide a better coefficient of drag, but it does provide a very nice styling element nonetheless. Now, because this car is based on the older GT Sport, we still do have the twin aluminum tipped exhaust, and it does make a pretty unique sound when you get on the gas. Now, one of the things that I genuinely love about hatchbacks these days is just how practical they are, in addition to being very fun to drive like this car. And this GT is certainly no exception if you want to haul your stuff around. For starters, you have a pretty large opening when you open the hatch here, and it only seems to be hindered by like this little parcel shelf here, which can just simply be removed by taking these cords off of these little nods here. Now, you do have a pretty sizable area. Thanks to a deeper floor, you're looking at about 25 cubic feet of space to start. However, fold down those 60/40 rear seats and you're looking at 55.1 cubic feet of space in total, thus allowing you to put quite a lot of things back here. Now, I really do like the fact this has a much deeper floor in it. I've tested hatchbacks prior to this that the floor kind of sits more flush with this rear little kind of scuff pad here, but nevertheless, thanks to the fact this has a much deeper floor, this car again is not only fun to drive but also much more practical as well. Now, to those who are familiar with the current generation Elantra GT's interior, then a lot of things in here will seem very familiar compared to the GT Sport. Things like the infotainment display up here and center console are all very much the same as they were in 2018. Even things like the red surrounds here for things like the air vents, and also things like the red color contrast stitching for things like the steering wheel, and also here on these seats with the red piping to go along with it, again, are very familiar like they were in the GT Sport. But again, some of the design features here are all N-line specific, like this 3-spoke multifunction steering wheel here, which is very thickly rimmed. You have big grip extensions up here at 10 and 2 like you would expect, much larger paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel, again a very N design specific touch, along with all the controls you would expect, things like your hands-free radio controls and Bluetooth connectivity, the control for the 4.2-inch thin film transistor display up there in the gauge cluster, as well as a few of the controls again for that adaptive cruise control that I mentioned earlier. Now, the feel of the wheel itself is great. It feels fantastic in your hands. The steering is nice and tight as you would expect with a much more hot hatchback like this, and you also even have little touches like the N badge down here at the bottom of the steering wheel, which you will also find down here at the base of the shift knob. Now, when you move to the left and back of the wheel just a little bit, you do have things such as the tilting and telescoping function. It is manually adjustable thanks to the lever here on the left-hand side of the steering column itself. And then just to the left of the column, you do have a couple of buttons, but not too many things that it takes a rocket scientist to understand them. You have your traction control, instrumentation dimming, and again, thanks to that Sport Tech package, you now have lane keep assist as a part of this near $30,000 hot hatch. A couple of other things worth noting: the driver's seat is also power adjustable thanks to the Sport Tech package, and over here on the door you have all of your power functions. You have your power mirrors, window locks, your automatic windows, and all the rest of your power windows along with it. Now, when you look here at the center console, of course, one of the first things that you're drawn to is the large 8-inch touchscreen display with its tablet-like fixture up here at the top of the dash. Now, pretty much every vehicle in Hyundai's line for 2019 uses this system, with the exception, I think, of the Elantra sedan and the Accent, just to name a couple of. Now, again, thanks to the Sport Tech package, my tester does have the navigation, so you can use the map tab over here on the right-hand side of the button arrangement, and the graphics are pretty rudimentary. They're basic, but they still do the job very well. Now, going back to the home screen, everything is just like all the other Hyundai telematics that we've used before. These cars have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay built in, and of course you can swipe through all your options like you would on your smartphone. Now, one of the things that I've become quite impressed with in a lot of Hyundai vehicles that use it is the Infinity Premium audio system that this car's Sport Tech package adds in. It's a 7-speaker audio system with an onboard amplifier. So let's give that a quick listen. Now again, just like the company's other products that use this tablet-like display, all the other functions in the system are pretty rudimentary. You have your radio function, media button, which is your Bluetooth media streaming and so on. You have your Seek Track functions. You have your map button, which again takes you right to the map and navigation. Then you also have the nav tab, which takes you to addresses, points of interest, and so on. You have the setup, which allows you to adjust sound, Bluetooth functions, and so on. Then you even have the advanced settings, so you could turn that star button into a custom button, and you can adjust everything else as such. As far as other things like the rear view camera, we'll just put the car in reverse here. It's pretty much what you'd expect. The camera quality is a little blurry. I've seen some rear view cameras on other cars that are just as expensive as this one, and they're much higher quality. So this one kind of looks like one of those low grade old school kind of digital cameras being fixed to the back of the car, but it's not so much a big deal because it does the job just fine. You turn the wheel, as you can see, it does have trajectory, so the lines turn in whichever direction you turn the steering wheel as well. And one interesting thing are the power door locks in this car. If you notice over here on the door, I don't have a power door lock switch. It's actually located right here in the middle of the center stack. So as you can see, I have the car in reverse now. The light being on shows that the vehicle's locked. I put the car in park, and you hear the doors unlock, and that light on the lock button turns off. So that is your power door lock switch. It's almost kind of I guess BMW-esque, more European, having the lock button here in the center instead of something over here on the door. So a very unique touch at that. As you move down below, you have the dual zone automated climate control system, which is standard in this particular tester of mine. It does include the company's clean air ionizer and purifier, which is basically just an anti-allergen system, or an allergy filtration system nonetheless. You have your temperature controls either side, front and rear defrost over here on the left, air conditioning, recycling, and just turning on the AC in general over on the right, with your digitized display in the middle. And then you have all the other functions down here. Now I love the way these buttons are set up. They're almost kind of like piano keys. I first talked about this actually in the Genesis G90, and the company seems to have taken notice of that, and they've put it in a lot of their other vehicles. So you have the automatic function, the ability to turn the system off. You have your fan speeds in the middle, your one button that controls all the climate zones over here on the far right, and then the ability to synchronize the AC as well, which means you can operate the temperatures either independent of each other, or you can operate them both at the same time. Moving a bit further back, we get to the selector for my test car's 7-speed EcoShift dual clutch automatic transmission. Now you can get this car in the auto, which is the more expensive option, or you can opt for a traditional 6-speed manual, which again is more of that hot hatch kind of feeling. Now I love the way they've laid this shifter out. The shifter itself, the knob is very thick. It has the nice little trigger on the front, and again, being the fact that this car's exterior design reminds me of the new Golf GTI, so does this shifter. Very much the same thing like you would find for a similarly equipped GTI with the DSG dual clutch automatic. This transmission still has all your typical functions: park, reverse, neutral, drive, nothing special there. You do have the Shiftronic manual shift mode, so you push up to go up a gear and pull back to go down a gear, but then again you can also use the paddles for a little bit more of a more engaging driving experience. Now again, I did mention the power door locks and all that stuff. They are automatic, so you put it in any other gear other than park, they'll lock themselves. Put it in park, they'll automatically unlock. Now one benefit benefit of this car with the tech package is the addition of ventilated seats. The standard GT line only comes with 3-stage heated front seats here, but as you can see with the addition of the tech package, you also get 3-stage ventilated seats here for both the front occupants. Other things of note, you do still have the drive mode select. You only have 2 modes in this car, normal and sport. The moment you push it, the display up here in the front will automatically adjust accordingly. As you can see, it turns kind of an orangish red when you put it in sport mode. As you come back a bit further, you do have 2 rather sizable cup holders. The one here in the back is a little bit smaller than the one in the front. I think you can kind of guess which one will hold your extra large dollar Coke from McDonald's. But you also have a couple of other things here. You have an electronic parking brake now standard here on the N line, as well as this car's auto hold function. Pretty simple. You just push the button, come to a complete stop with your foot on the brake, the system activates, and you can take your foot off the pedal without having to worry about the car rolling in either direction. Finally, finishing it all off, you do have a nice sort of leatherette bound center console here with a nice 12-volt 180-watt socket in the middle, and again, you do have a pretty sizable amount of space in there for storing things such as your phone and other items. Now, unfortunately, one of the drawbacks for taller folks like myself with hot hatchbacks like this is rear seat legroom. Now, I go to sit in the back of this GT here, and as you can see, I have the seat where I would be comfortable driving this vehicle, and unfortunately, as you can see, my knees are directly in the driver's back if I want to sit comfortably. Now, the company has done something about this. As you can see, there are indentions in the back of the seat with a little bit of a plasticky-like material here on the back of both of the seats. You also do have dual map pockets, but again, legroom is going to be a little bit hindered if you have a taller driver. As far as other things back here, you do have a small little center armrest here with 2 sizable cup holders for your drinks for your rear occupants, and also these seats are easily foldable with the triggers for the 60/40 split fold in the upper corners of each of the seats. On a final note, headroom is actually pretty good back here. I'm 6'1", as I said, so I sit a little bit taller up or higher up, and my head does ever so slightly hit the back here where the sunroof meets the actual roof itself. But other than that, with this panoramic sunroof in place, taller folks may have a little bit more usable headroom here in the back. But other than that, it can still be a comfortable vehicle. You might just need a shorter driver if you're a taller person like myself. All right, so you've seen it, you've heard it, you've seen all the cool stuff that this thing has, but now comes the best part. We get to take this little hot hatch for a quick blast out on the road. So, seatbelt on, engine start. All right, everyone, so here we are in the new N-Line Elantra GT. Now, we don't have a whole lot of time to spend with this car in terms of driving it, so let's just cut straight to the chase. First and foremost, the engine is exactly the same as the current Elantra Sport sedan and the old Elantra GT Sport hatchback. It's still the same 1.6-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, making 201 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. And that engine is pushing around a car that, in this case, weighs about 3,150 pounds or so. Now, while the performance isn't too different from both cars that I just mentioned, what is different is the driving dynamics and the handling of this car. The N-Line has taken what was good about the old GT Sport hatch and just turned the dial up ever so slightly. As I said, we have a stiffer suspension, both front and rear, about 15% in the front and about 22% in the rear. And when you push this car into a corner, even just a long sweeper like what we're coming up to now, the steering is much more responsive. You really do get that true hot hatchback kind of feeling when it comes to turning into a corner. Now, the steering itself is pretty forgiving. You do have a little bit of forgiveness on turn-in when in normal mode, but when you reach down and hit the drive mode button and put this car in sport, the GT N-Line's motor-driven electric power steering really does come into its own. It firms up so nicely, and the turn-in is much more responsive, and it's actually quite surprising considering this is a sub-$30,000 loaded hot hatchback. Now, in terms of comfort, I'm 6'1", and I'm actually very comfortable in these front seats. They're very heavily bolstered buckets, so I have nice support around my torso. I have great support up here by my shoulders, considering they're a little more broad, and I do have a lot more support down here where my thighs are as well. The only real thing I wish that was possible was that the front of the seat was extended out a little bit. The front of my legs do stick out a little bit further over the front of the seats, and that can cause a little bit of discomfort for taller drivers. drivers. Now, in terms of the noise this car makes, one thing I'm happy about is that it feels a lot more natural. There's no intake noise being pumped through the speakers or anything like that. It really just feels au natural. And when you really get on it, it's not so loud and obnoxious that it feels like it's going to drone on and on. I mean, just take a listen for a second. It really does feel like a much more sensible hot hatchback. And again, the fact that it's not so drony definitely is a plus. But guys, as you can see, we're back here now at our starting point. So I want to thank you all for coming along in this quick drive and review of the new Elantra GT line. Now, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and also be sure to click that subscribe button down below for many more videos like this and more to come in the future. But as always, a huge thanks goes out to the folks here at Humble Hyundai in the north end of Houston, Texas, for providing this GT line for us to have a go in, and also for you guys to have a look at. But in the end, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see you guys next time. As always, take care and stay safe.